And the topic here in algebra is we're going to add with negative exponents. And with this topic, let's take a look at this sample that I have on this screen. And we've had these type of problems. You're basically adding two fractions. We have two denominators that aren't the same. So what we need to do is we wrote it vertically, and then we need to find a common denominator. And in this case, the common denominator is what we call the least common multiple. So for the x's, you've got an x cubed and an x squared. So you've got an x cubed is our least common multiple. We've got a y, and then we have an m cubed. And then we found our numerators. So in the top numerator, let's see, x squared y times what is the x cubed y m cubed. And what are we missing? Well, we're missing an x and we're missing an m cubed. So I got to multiply the top by that. So we have an x, ax m cubed. Now in the bottom numerator, we ask ourselves, what do I need to multiply x cubed m cubed by to get the x cubed y m cubed? And I'm missing a y, so I got to multiply the top by y, and we get dy. Now, since we're adding the two fractions, we put it over our common denominator, and then we add our numerators. So we have ax m cubed plus by. And we're finished. So, we found a common denominator and we added them together. Now, if you look at example 1, and I want you to pause this and write down example 1, the technique or what we needed to do isn't quite as apparent. Because for one thing, we've got negative exponents. So if we look back on this sample, we did not have negative exponents with this one. So we need to get to the point with example 1 where it looks like this sample that we did earlier. Well, we know with negative exponents we can force them to become positive by dropping them, by moving them up or down. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to rewrite this problem. So I have a, I'm going to drop the x to the negative 1 down, and it becomes x to the first minus b over y squared. Now, it becomes a problem like we had in our first sample. So I'm going to write this problem vertically, up and down, and we're going to find a common denominator. And our common denominator is going to be our least common multiple. Well, remember, this is different from greatest common factor. So what do I have? Well, I have an x, and I have a y squared, and that is my common denominator. Now, let's find the numerators, and we're almost done. So x times what gives me xy squared? Well, I'm missing a y squared, so I need to multiply the top by y squared. So I have an ay squared. And the bottom, y squared times what is xy squared? Well, now I'm missing an x, so I need to multiply the top by x, so I get bx. Now, let's finish this off. We're subtracting these, right? So I put it over my common denominator of xy squared, and I subtract the numerator. So I have ay squared minus bx. And we're done. And sometimes they'll ask you, for example, in this particular problem, we want to write this with all positive exponents. Now, is this written with all positive exponents? It is. So we're done. Okay, let's take a look at example 2, and I want you to pause this and write this one down. Okay, the first thing we need to do, if we're going to subtract these, and one point I want to make here, I want to go back to example 1. In this original problem, we're subtracting, right? And one thing here is you've got two terms. You've got an ax negative 1 and you have a by negative 2. Now we can't subtract it as it is because they're not like terms, are they? So we can't use that technique. So we make the negative exponents become positive, then we find our common denominator, and we add or subtract. So in this case here, I have two terms. They're unlike. I can't do anything with it right now, but I can do something with it by writing the negative exponents positive. So let's do that. So my x stays in the top. I'm going to drop the a to the negative 3 down, becomes this, and then y to the first, minus b over x squared. Now it becomes a problem that we're familiar with. So I write it vertically, and we're going to find our common denominator. Now I want you to think about what our common denominator is. All right, so we've got an a cubed, right? I've got a x squared. So we've got an x squared in the bottom, and then we've got a y. All right, now let's finish this off and let's find the numerators. So let's see, a cubed y times what gives me the common denominator. Let's see, what am I missing? I'm missing an x squared, so I need to multiply the top by x squared. Let's see, we're multiplying two powers, you add the exponents. Now on the bottom, what am I multiplying by to get that? Well, I've got an x squared, I need an a cubed, and I need a y. And that gives me an a cubed by. Now let's subtract them. So let's put it over our common denominator of a cubed x squared y. So I have x cubed minus a cubed by. Now, do I have all positive exponents? And we do. So in this particular case, we're done. So the topic was adding with negative exponents.